The healthcare detective Frank Lalli has written a book for Simon & Schuster about how to get affordable healthcare. Called Your Best Healthcare Now. It is available online, in-store, wherever fine books are sold. Mr. Lalli is also the health correspondent for Parade and the former editor of Money and George magazines. And I hear he's gotten even busier. Meanwhile, we are going to we're going to keep talking about something that he started last week, and that is the place in the pantheon for alternative, or what I prefer to call complementary medicine.
Yes, we are going to talk about that today. We talked about it at length last week, but you challenged me because I said I couldn't find any clinical studies that actually back up alternative medicine, but I'd go back and take a thorough look, and that's exactly what I've done. So let's discuss what I found out. So, Doc, look, here are the medical experts I talk to on a regular basis. These are the ones I really trust, and they actually say flat out, there is no such thing as quote unquote alternative medicine. And here's how they reason it. They say an alternative is something that delivers equal value. It's something of equal value. And there's no scientific research, none, showing that alternative medicine is as safe and effective as conventional medicine. The studies just aren't there. Now, around 75% of conventional medicine is evidence-based. That means there are studies showing that it effectively treats an illness or a malady. That's 75% of what happens in a doctor's office or in a hospital in a standard medicine setting is supported by evidence. That is in contrast to 0% for alternative therapies. And that includes all the stuff that people talk about and we've discussed, like herbal regimens or acupuncture, all kinds of diets, which I consider fad diets in most cases, megavitamins, that's a good one, and meditation. Well, but there is a role for meditation, which we'll discuss in a minute. But anyway, the fact is, alternative medicine, standard medicine are very different, and they have different goals in a sense. Alternative treatments are meant to restore your health by addressing a supposed imbalance in your body. Okay? By contrast, conventional medicine is actually meant to treat and cure an illness, and cure is a very important word. Still, when you go to an alternative provider, in many cases, they'll say to you, well, the studies are underway. We don't have them quite yet because we're really on the horizon and we're ahead of scientific medicine. They haven't caught up with us yet. But boy, oh boy, the stuff I really want to give you, these pills or this herbal tea and acupuncture and so on, this is really good stuff. Problem is, in fact, it is not backed by clinical evidence, bottom line. Worse, and this bothers me a lot, Jill, because substituting alternative medicine for conventional medicine can actually kill you. Now, I had an aunt. She had cancer. It's in advanced stages. And she was on chemo, very powerful stuff. And she was actually feeling awful. So it was making her extremely nauseous. So she didn't have any appetite, couldn't eat. That led to very bad nutrition, which in turn led to a kind of weakness and a fatigue. And she was having a really rough time. So her daughter took her to a megavitamin peddler. And the first thing the megavitamin person did, and this is common with some alternative medicine providers, first thing she said was, okay, we're going to take her off chemo because, my pills and her chemo, they're not going to work together. So she's got to go off the chemo. Well, if you go off the chemo, you feel better. It was the chemo that was causing the nausea and those symptoms that she was having, even though it was fighting the cancer, but it was making her feel lousy. No chemo, she felt better. She was eating more. She had her appetite back. She gained a couple of pounds. Well, but guess what, Joe? 3 months later, without the chemo, she died. So that worries me a lot when you try to substitute an alternative medicine for something that is proven. And alternative medicine can also hurt you financially. It's often expensive, even psychologically, because when you find out, maybe a year later or 6 months later that you got to admit to yourself that this stuff really isn't helping me, and I've spent a lot of money on it, and And even physically. Now, I've got another friend who just went to a spa and was dealing with one of those imbalances, okay? And what was involved was heating up rocks. I don't know if you've heard about this. You heat up a pile of rocks, and then you put the rocks on this specific places on somebody's back, the unlicensed person doing this, by the way, and it's supposed to restore your balance. Well, guess what? The woman who applied the rocks didn't know what she was doing. The rocks were way too hot, and now my friend is at home with third-degree burns. I mean, you need an alternative to that kind of unlicensed treatment. So anyway, look, I think, Jill, you got to ask yourself, and I will ask you right now. I mean, why do you think more than 1/3 of the adults in this country each year turns to alternative medicine? Why do you think it's so high?
I don't know the answer. I don't know the official answer. I do know that when my mother had cancer, and this was years and years ago, she basically told the oncologist at the fancy New York hospital that she didn't really want to do chemo. Because at that time it was really, it really, really roughed you up. And she said, I would like my final days to be, more pleasant than not. So the oncologist said that she should do radiation for her headaches, and that would be fine. And
wait,
what about,
was she doing any herbals or acupuncture or any of that stuff? She was taking less of an invasive chemo or radiology. That's standard medicine. That's conventional medicine. That's not. But not the fad diet or something like that.
Right, but there is a massive difference, and this is where you and I totally part company on this. And what you want, what you are calling alternative, and what I am calling complementary, is also called integrative. And there are programs at the finest universities in the land, here and now. And there seems to be a willingness to include integrative in, as I just found on the Columbia University the Columbia University, as in New York City, website, the future of wellness and healthcare. So somewhere in there is going to be the reason that 1/3 of what you are. It's like, I'm not advocating going to an unlicensed person to drop hot rocks on your back. Okay, what I personally don't understand, and this is just me, and again, I have to say this: we know I'm weird, but I don't understand why someone wouldn't do a little bit of research first and find out if there was some license. I mean, I know that I approach this with, with professionals. I'm not. I don't have the, okay, this is going to cure me just because I found it or someone I know found it. And in fact, one of the worst things that can happen, and going back to my mom, we had this way back when everybody knows somebody who can make whatever it is go away. And
we actually should talk about that, because there's a place for alternatives. And what you described with your mother, there could have been but the decision of the doctor to say, okay, we're going to take you off chemo because actually the chemo, you're too far along. The chemo's not going to help you. It's just going to make your final months miserable. And that's hospice care, palliative care that reduces the strain on the body and the pain and discomfort of conventional medicine. Without doing, as you just said, an alternative, unlicensed, whatever, dropping hot rocks on your back to a point where you got 3rd degrees. Look, I think a 1/3 of the country is turning to alternative medicine, where it works is where we cross over into the placebo effect. So I just said there's no clinical studies that back it up, but there can be feel-good results done right. So alternatives can make you feel better, and I'll explain why. But remember, as the example of both my aunt and your mother, it's not going to cure you. It may relieve pain, but it's not going to cure you. So just the ritual alone of seeing the herbal guy or the acupuncturist, taking the pills or getting the massage, all that kind of stuff, even that alone can unleash your mind over what's truly the matter. Okay, if you get what I'm saying, because you're saying you're getting special attention, you're getting care, and that makes you feel better because you're taking control of your health. You're taking a positive step against the illness. And in the jargon of the day, you're practicing what some of these people call health freedom. I've got the freedom to make a choice that's positive, and I'm stepping forward and I'm following this regimen that's going to help me. That alone can actually cause you to relax. And that can help with sinus headaches and stress headaches. It can help you with insomnia. It can improve your blood pressure. There are good outcomes just from the placebo effect. It can also actually just trigger your brain to produce more feel-good transmitters, like endorphins or dopamine. These things can help with pain, and you can have less pain. It's really mind over matter. And also going to the herbal guy or the acupuncturist, and this is so important, it buys you time. People don't understand this concept well enough. Most illnesses have a shelf life, okay? Cancer, I'm not talking about cancer, but I'm talking about like a bad back or something like that. Or the flu, the stuff passes on its own if you just do regular stuff. So your back may indeed feel a hell of a lot better because you've gone a couple of weeks and you've drank the tea from the herbal guy that he mixed up just especially for you, and it must be good because it was really expensive. But guess what? You'd feel just as good if you'd stayed home, saved your money, and drank Harney's tea. I mean, Harney's tea is very good. And something like a bad back in a couple of weeks, it would feel better. So there's one more thing that you and I should kick around a little bit. And you shouldn't get me started on this because here we're in total alignment. You shouldn't get me started too much on fad diets. I know that's a bugaboo of yours, and it is of me too. I mean, just give me your sense of what you think of fad diets.
It's just stupid.
Okay, that pretty much sums it up. So I'll tell you one story. I got this from my wife, Carol, who was a book editor at Simon & Schuster and Rizzoli. Do you remember Herman Tarnauer? Remember that guy?
Oh, sure. The one who got shot by Mrs. Madeira. What was her name? Jean Scarsdale died. Jean Harris.
Yeah,
right?
His
Mrs. Headmistress, though. That was a good one.
Awfully angry and killed him. Anyway, before she did that, he was the author of the Scarsdale Diet. And by the way, he once thanked publicly his nursing assistant for writing the 2-page memo that provided the scientific basis of his book that sold more than 2 million copies, the Scarsdale Diet. So anyway, we're living in L.A., and we've got this wonderful doctor, Bill Schwartz. And Schwartz starts joking around with Carol about the Tarnauer book, okay? He says, come on, the Scarsdale Diet. Scarsdale sets the tone for of fashion or, fad in the United States. That's ridiculous. Let's team up and write the Beverly Hills Diet. So they both have a big laugh over that. It's pretty funny. A couple of years later.
Okay, I remember that one.
You bet.
Oh, absolutely.
Later, instead of Dr. Bill and Carol, somebody comes along and writes a bestseller called The Beverly Hills Diet.
Absolutely.
And sells more than 1 million copies. Okay. So.
And now with social media, I mean, God should save us. Because basically you can put anything, no matter how impractical, she said. Mm-hmm. She said, utilizing diplomacy for the last time this year, and get it out.
Implausible. Implausible.
Even better, implausible. Yeah. But if you find one or two people who it works for, well, bingo.
Well, look. Let's put. This is my point of view. Okay, not exactly yours, but this is mine. There's a place for alternative treatments. There is. But I'd limit it. If you want to try something different, okay, limit it to relaxation therapies like meditation, like biofeedback. That actually can lower your stress
How about
levels.
physical
and that'll
therapy?
help your blood pressure. Yeah. Or yoga. I mean, lifestyle regimens, yoga That helps you exercise. It encourages you to eat right. It helps to control your weight. All that is positive. But here's my final word on my view of alternative medicine.
On your show, yes?
Yes, I'm saying this. If you turn your back on standard medicine, okay, completely turn your back on standard medicine, sooner or later, you're going to get bit in the butt.
Thank you, Frank, the healthcare detective and senior advisor to healthcare.com. Send your questions or concerns about finding affordable healthcare to healthcaredetective@robinhoodradio.com. Frank will try to address as many of your questions as he can on future broadcasts. Also, look for his book, Your Best Healthcare Now, available online, in-store, and, as I often say, on my desk.